welcome to Hardware Heaven. Today we are going to be doing a review of Final Fantasy X HD and X-2 HD Remake. So we're going to go into all of the details on what's changed, whether I think it has improved on the original, and whether you should check it out. So let's get started. Before I actually get into the details of the game, Square Enix actually sent me this art book along with a copy of my game, and it is amazing. It's got details of all the zones, all of the characters, all of their art, their costumes. It is so good. I absolutely love it. It's going to be put on my nerd shelf because it looks so cool. I just wanted to include that like I did with the DuckTales little collection box that I received, because I always like to receive these kind of things. They're just a nice addition to a good game. So first of all, I'm going to go over the good bits of the remake of 10 and 10-2, what I think really shined, what I think stood the test of time, and the reasons why I think you should buy it. So first of all, the soundtrack has been completely remade and remastered, and it sounds fantastic. If you loved the soundtrack in Final Fantasy X or X-2 and you want to revisit it, now is the time, because it sounds a million times better and you'll definitely enjoy it if you were a fan. If you weren't a fan, you need to listen to it anyway, because it's one of those iconic JRPG soundtracks that if you are a fan of the series, you should definitely check out. Graphically, it's much nicer. The edges have been smoothed out and it really has been brought up to PS3 standards. However, if you are looking for something that is next-gen standards, then this will not be the game for you. It does look a lot better than it did on the PS2, and I'm predicting that on the PS Vita it will look amazing, because it won't be so stretched up into, you know, HD graphics. So on a smaller screen, I think you'll definitely have a lot better experience. On the PS3 it still looks nice, but it's definitely not something that as a modern day gamer I would say it was stunning. It just looks better than it did before. It's extremely nice to also see the CGI rendered cutscenes in high quality. If you were a fan of the games, you would love to see them again because they look amazing. It's really nice to see a combat system that stands the test of time, and in Final Fantasy X and X-2 it really does. You know that they built a good system in the beginning, because even now it doesn't feel too dated, and it's something that you would expect to see in a JRPG even released in 2014. I really think that and the sphere grid system really do live up well to the expectations of a modern gamer, so you wouldn't really play them and feel like it was clunky or, you know, weird system. It's definitely something that still stands the test of time, and I think it works really well. So some things new that have been added is that you can have cross saves from the PS3 and the PS Vita. Now unfortunately this isn't a cross-buy sort of system, so if you do want to play it on the Vita and on PS3 you will need to buy 2 copies, but it means that you can keep the saves on both of your systems so that you can play it at home. Then if you're traveling, play it on your PS Vita, transfer that save to your PS3, and you can continue playing where you left off, which I think is great. And to be fair, I think all games that have a kind of portable counterpart should have this. Now let's talk about some things that I think could have been a little bit more improved on, and things that I think will put off people who aren't keen fans of the Final Fantasy franchise or even Final Fantasy X. Let's be honest, if you played Final Fantasy X when it first came out, you're most likely going to purchase this. But I think Square Enix definitely want to try and reel in new people, new players who may not have got into the Final Fantasy franchise, because it is a little bit daunting seeing 14 different games, not included X-2, Final Fantasy 13-2, etc. There's just 14 kind of games out there, and you think, wow, I'm never going to get into this, I'm not going to understand it. Not many people understand that each of the different sort of number of games has a complete different universe and story, and then they just continue on into the second or third of that specific number. So they're going to want new people to pick it up, especially when the release of Final Fantasy 15 is kind of on the horizon at some point, hopefully soon. So we kind of expect some level in a HD remake that will bring it up to modern days, that people will enjoy it. Now, one of the things that I really felt wasn't up to standard was the character animations. It seemed like they over-animated some parts of the characters, but left out others. For example, Tidus's eyes, when you're playing the game and just in the kind of pre-rendered cutscenes, seem really bright and big and kind of goldfish-like, and it is quite scary. Like, his eyes are scary, but in the really nice CGI cutscenes, they are really kind of a pale blue and they look natural and they look great. Those cutscenes were made amazingly, still stand the test of time, but I think they over-animated his eyes and various other parts on various different characters that just make it a little bit weird when not over-animating the rest of them. Another example of that is they've changed the hair so that it's meant to wave and flow in the wind, but the fact that it is still very, very dated just makes it look glitchy now on a modern console. It just kind of looks like the hair is glitching around, whereas if it was just still and in the art style of Final Fantasy X, it wouldn't look so bad. But again, they just tried to over-animate it and it just looks very, very broken and glitchy. They didn't really seem to make any effort to resync the vocals. I know that back in the day in Final Fantasy, they never sort of kind of matched the dubbing of the vocals, whereas in something like Lightning Returns, you'll see that the English and the Japanese versions match up perfectly. However, sometimes the audio is completely off, where a character will be talking and their mouth will not move till about 5 seconds after they've finished talking, and I think they could have made some effort in the remake to kind of match that up, because in the CGI cutscenes again, which seems to be where they've put all of their effort into, they match up perfectly. It looks exactly like you would expect a modern day Final Fantasy game to be, so I feel like they should have put some more effort into the actual gameplay and those pre-rendered cutscenes and not just the CGI ones. Some gameplay things have kind of been very dated. As you would expect on a PS2, the collision boxes for items was a lot bigger than the actual item. By that I mean you'll try and walk through a door and a gate will be lifting upwards and you'll be running and running and running and you can't actually get up there till the gate is fully up, even though your character could fit under it. Things like that. Or you're running to a rock and you kind of stutter forwards constantly until you can finally get past it because your character cannot just step over it. Those kind of things are dated. You would expect that in an old console, but I would have liked that kind of thing to be a little bit more polished in a HD remake, simply because new players and people who have been raised on games in the 2000s will find this and think, wow, this game is really buggy. But it's not buggy, it's just something that they could have just polished a little bit more and brought up to modern day standards. And again, with just the camera, because you cannot manually change the camera, which is something us modern day gamers, I say again, are used to. You're able to use your right kind of analog stick to always pan the camera around. Because you can't do that, the camera sometimes does get stuck in very weird places, meaning that you can't actually see where you're going and you're kind of running towards yourself. And sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating. Overall, I think this is a great HD remake, regardless of the points that I've just mentioned. People who were very, very into Final Fantasy X will absolutely love this. They'll get to revisit some very cherished moments of their childhood. However, I don't think it was up to scratch enough. It wasn't a complete reboot. It was just kind of a HD remaster, essentially. And I think that new people to the franchise probably wouldn't find it that interesting. And like myself, will probably find the bad parts of the game a little bit overwhelming in the experience because we didn't play it when we were younger and we don't have that kind of nostalgia driving us to continue playing. I definitely recommend getting this if you did play Final Fantasy X when it first came out, but if you didn't, I would probably wait for a modern Final Fantasy game if you are wanting to get into the franchise. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future ones, and leave a like if you did like it, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Thank you.